Hey everybody, it's Mama to Wife of One. Thank you guys so much for coming to my channel or coming back to my channel if you're not new here. For those who are new here, hi, welcome. I'm Mama to Wife of One. I'm a content creator and a fake influencer. I don't know if I actually influence people, but let's say that I do for argument's sake. I'm also an author. I'm a literary editor, a mommy and a wife, and a proud Black woman. And if you have been here before, you guys already know what it is. Make sure you like this video before you even get too deep into it. You don't have to hear me say everything. You just like it, right away. Just, do that for me. Just give me a solid. Like this video, share the video to people who actually care about Married at First Sight. Make sure you comment below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. You can always tell from the title that we're here to discuss Married at First Sight, but because I did not record last week, you guys are going to get a twofer. I'm going to review and recap episodes 5 and 6 of Married at First Sight. They are on their honeymoon, these 4 couples, and honestly, after episode 6, my mother and I were texting each other, and she was like, is it just me, or are the couples boring? I was like, you know what, it's not just you. And normally, I don't get bored this early in the season. It normally happens maybe around, I don't know, sometimes the seasons will run on TV for at least like 20 weeks. Normally around the 14th week, I'm like, this is kind of dragging on a little bit. So this is early for me to be a little bored. I'm not checked out completely, but I'm definitely like, it's giving a lot. But regardless, I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about each couple or talk about each episode. And I think I'm going to do each episode because I have my files in 2 different places because I like to take notes for you guys so I don't forget stuff. So we're going to start with episode 5, which is called Take Me Down to Paradise City. All 4 couples have just landed in Cancun, Mexico, and they're all gathered together. And I fuss about this a lot on my channel when it comes to this show specifically. I don't like how often the couples are together. I understand they're supposed to be learning from each other and leaning on each other as I go through this process. I definitely understand that, but I feel like there are too many times when all of them are together. And in this instance specifically, the show starts out with all of them together talking about what they expect out of this honeymoon, what they're hoping to get out of it, what they want to do. And it's like, do you guys have to do, not even a recap, because the honeymoon hasn't started. Do you guys have to have this now? Y'all can't just get together later to talk about how it's going? I just thought that's kind of a waste of time. But I digress. We're going to start with Cameron and Claire. And one of the things they said reiterates my point of why I think the couples are together too often. Cameron admitted to Claire that he's jealous that he and Claire seem to be progressing slower than the other couples. The other couples are a lot more touchy-feely. They're kissing each other, holding hands, doing a lot more than Cameron and Claire seem to be doing on the surface. And Cameron's like, oh, I feel like we're not doing as much. And it's like, this is why you shouldn't be with the couples as much as you are, because naturally, we're human. We're going to start comparing ourselves to other people, especially because everybody met at the altar. We've all been married the exact same amount of time. And yet this couple is kissing all the time. This couple, she's leaning her head on his shoulder. He has his hand on her lap or whatever. And yet we're sitting beside each other, but we're not touching or we're not looking at each other or whatever. Very easy to compare. It's not a great space to be in because comparison is, I can't say it's never good. Sometimes it can encourage you and inspire you to do better. But when it comes to freshly being married, that's not necessarily what you need. It's already a lot of pressure because you're under this time constraint of 8 weeks to get to know this person, to see if they're the person that you've always dreamt of being your spouse, and then decide if you want to stay married or get a divorce. So you already have all of that in your head, not to mention all of the things that you don't even know to worry about yet. You haven't yet lived with this person. Staying with someone on vacation is not the same as going home to your regular life and seeing them every single day when you walk through the door from work. So there's plenty of other things for them to be concerned about, but that's one of the things they mentioned. He thinks he's not the easiest to be around, but he thinks Claire's handling it well. She said they're different people and that works to their advantage. And I definitely agree that it can. But sometimes on the show, they'll put people together who are completely opposite. And I've fussed about this before too. They'll put people together who are complete opposites with the hope that the person who's outgoing will be calmed down by the person who's an introvert. The person who's an introvert hopefully will be inspired to get out of the show a little bit more by the person who is outgoing. And this is the thing. Sometimes that does happen, but it doesn't always happen. It's also operating under the assumption that the introvert wants to be taken out of his shell and the outgoing person wants to be brought down a little bit. That doesn't mean that's the case. So yes, being different can work to their advantage if they allow it to, I guess, and if they continuously understand that being different means that I'm going to respect what you bring to the table. You're going to respect what I bring to the table, but we're both going to be patient with each other, understanding that your strong point is not my strong point. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. Let's just listen to each other and let's try to get on the same page. He said he's not looking for sex, but he is looking for a spark to happen on the honeymoon. So this is the thing that I'm kind of confused about. I don't remember if they've said it to each other up to this point, but they've both said individually in their talking heads that they find each other very attractive. But I don't remember if they've told each other, oh my gosh, you're so attractive, you're beautiful, you're cute, whatever. I don't know if they've said those words to each other, but whenever they have their talking heads, they talk about, well, yeah, I'm attracted, but I don't know if he feels the same way. I really like her. I don't know if she feels the same way. It's like, you guys are grown, so why haven't you guys had this actual conversation? It doesn't seem like they have, or if they have, they haven't had it on camera. It seems like it's a lot of assumptions and a lot of wishes and hopes about what this could be, what this person thinks about me, but no one's really saying anything. So I don't really know what's going on there, especially because Claire is a therapist. So I would imagine, and I said this before though, when they talked about getting these couples together in the first place and just picking people for the show, that having a person as a therapist can be both a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because you assume that as a therapist, they're very good at listening and they're good at compartmentalizing and they're good at problem solving, essentially, right? But the bad thing about that is sometimes if you are in this profession, it's hard for you to diagnose yourself and to really look inward to see what's going on with you. Because yes, you can be a great therapist to other people, but every therapist needs a therapist, just like every doctor needs a doctor. You can't operate on yourself. So obviously you need someone who is a professional, even if you guys are in the same profession, to operate on you if need be. And it's the same thing with therapists. And I don't know if she necessarily has a therapist or not, but I just say all that to say that there's some things that she needs to work through as well that she probably isn't even aware that she needs to work through. I'll just say that. They went paddleboarding and they seemed to have fun. They had a long talk about physical touch, but and this was off camera as well. This is not on camera. He thinks he still isn't clear about what she wants. And he feels he needs to feel comfort and he needs to feel safety. And he thinks that she's not comfortable with him. So the thing is, he's operating the assumption that she's not comfortable with me on a physical level. So he hesitates to do any touching at all. They have not kissed since the wedding day, I don't believe. And even something as simple as putting his arm around her. The couple times I've seen him do that, I don't know if he's doing that out of obligation, if he's doing it because he actually wants to touch her. Either way, her body, and we'll kind of go to this with episode 6, the way she reacts to that is very telling. So I don't want to go, I know I'm going to mix up the two episodes, so forgive me in advance for doing that. But either way, they went paddleboarding, they had fun. She thought it was a good step to making the spark grow. And I was like, how? You guys did an activity, you weren't even on the same paddleboard, you guys did two separate things, not touching each other. So I don't know how they're supposed to make the spark grow. I was kind of confused about that, but okay. And again, he said in his talking head that she's attractive, and I put in my notes like, but have you told her? And I don't know if he's physically said this to her or not yet, and he said before that it's not always easy for him to verbally talk about how he feels. He's much better at showing it. And she's supposed to be the exact opposite. She's much better at saying it than showing it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, that they work differently when it comes to communication. Obviously, we'll see in the future. And I will say so that we're talking about what they do. Obviously, we know she's a therapist. He owns a bike shop. And she's in her last year of her master's program. And she asked him, are you bored with fixing bikes? It just seems like it'd be the same thing like all the time. And this is one thing I did note about Claire. And I don't know if it's intentional. I can't assume. But her tone of voice sometimes is very condescending and just kind of like talking down to him. So when she said, are you bored with fixing bikes? Like he's just an employee in the shop. I had to write in my notes, like, he owns the company, put some respect on his position. This is his company. This is what he likes to do. He talked about, he's like, with therapy, you help people live their best lives. You help them come to grips with who they are, what they want, all that stuff. And he said for him, for some people, bike riding is a savior for some people. It's like, so the fact that I'm able to contribute to them being happy and being fulfilled, he's like, that means a lot to me to help people. And I love the fact that he broke it down for her and helped her to understand that it's not just me fixing bikes, like this is a hobby. I'm actually providing a service to people. So I appreciate that. And I love the passion that he showed when he talked about it as well. That was really cool. And I also said that it seems like most of their serious conversations seem to happen off camera. They had this conversation about therapy, and it got a little weird, and I didn't quite understand everything that was going on. It seemed like he was saying, I had therapy as a kid. I don't really need it now because I have the things that I need. I'm happy, and therapy, I needed it at a time when I wasn't happy, but I'm good now. And, obviously she's a big proponent of therapy because she is a therapist. And he didn't knock it, but it's almost like she was and I've said this before, it's almost like she wasn't able to turn off the therapy part of her brain. And when she was talking about therapy, it didn't seem like she was talking to him as a wife trying to get to know her husband. It sounded more like a therapist talking to a patient who was brought there against their will. Like, well, why don't you think you need therapy? Therapy is a great tool. It does this and this and that. So how do you feel that, therapy has not helped? It just seemed like she was almost interrogating him, but again, using the therapist's voice of being very calm and very patient. It just didn't sound like a wife necessarily. And again, I said that before, that sometimes when you're in a profession like that, as a therapist, as a doctor sometimes, especially as a preacher. My mother's a preacher, and I know for her, I imagine sometimes it's hard to turn that part of you off. When you're having a regular conversation with your girlfriend, with your child, with your husband, sometimes it's hard to turn off that part of you that wants to help. And there's a certain tone of voice that all those people use when they're talking to someone that they're trying to help. And I feel like Claire was using that kind of voice with Cameron. And my last note I put for that episode was it's not looking too good for them as a couple. For me, I'm definitely not seeing the connection. I'm not seeing the chemistry. And obviously chemistry can come about in different ways. So maybe the chemistry can grow. And I think that it can. I'm definitely not taking that off the table. And it's still early. They're just on the honeymoon. They have not gotten home yet. They haven't really started living their lives together just yet. So anything can happen. But I don't know about those two. I'm not really gung-ho about what's going to happen with them. Next, we're going to talk about Austin and Becca. They are both so cute to me. I still love them together. They went on a boat ride. They had, they've been having serious and silly conversations. They seem to be a really good mix of serious and silly, which I like. She said that he's sensitive, and she loves that he is starting to anticipate her needs before she can say it. It shows that he's really paying attention to her. She said that he's creative. He thinks that she's strong for still living life and enjoying moments, even through her pain and her discomfort, and he admires her. They've shared a lot of kisses. Nobody has had sex this episode still. Everyone's kind of still waiting and getting to know each other. She admitted to liking him. She said that he's really sweet. He talked about growing up as an only child, and he wants 2 kids. She says she's open to having them or not having them. And the question I have, I guess for you guys and for her, is can you truly be either or when it comes to having kids? I feel like you're either very strongly set on having them because you've always wanted them, or you're very strongly against having them because you've never wanted them. And obviously both ways are perfectly fine. I don't know when it comes to kids if you can truly be just on the fence. Oh, if I have them, great. If I don't have them, that's fine too. I'm kind of, either or. If I have them, that's great. If, I don't have to have them. It's I don't know. I feel like you have to you have to firmly be on one side or the other. That's just my personal opinion. But who knows? Maybe Becca is on the quote unquote fence because of all her health challenges. And I've said this before, she has endometriosis, and I've heard, and it's not for every woman, but some women who have endometriosis is very difficult for them to conceive a child. So that could be part of why she's not necessarily gung-ho about it, because maybe she's already convinced herself that may not be in the cards for her. I don't know. I think that's a conversation they're going to have later down the line, because I feel like if he definitely wants a family, and especially growing up as an only child, if he definitely wants at least 2 or at least 1, then that's a conversation and a commitment that they need to make to each other. Probably if they make it to decision day and they both say yes, that's a deeper conversation that they need to have. And he said before that he's going to look into all of her health conditions so he can have a better understanding of how they work, a better understanding of what awaits him in the future, and how he can be a support to her. So I'm sure he'll learn that information himself. And again, I hope that's a conversation that they'll have, and they'll be able to be on the same page when it comes to that. So we shall see. He went in the pool. She wasn't feeling well enough to be in the pool because of her surgery. And she feels really bad that her health is already prohibiting them from having the kind of fun that she anticipated them to have. It's just the honeymoon. This is only day 3 or 4 of marriage. And because of her health conditions, she's already not being able to do certain things. And that was her big fear getting married, is that she did not want to be a burden to her husband because of all of her health challenges. And, I put that sacrifice is a big part of marriage. Whether ahead of time this person has these conditions or not, marriage is about sacrifice in a lot of different ways. And he seemed to handle it the best way he could. And he seemed to be very chill with it. Like, it's okay. It's just the pool. It's not the big of a deal. I'm just happy to be here with you. I'm happy to be with you. I'm happy that you're here, that I get to talk to you. I still get to hold you, kiss you. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do as your husband to make sure you're good. Don't worry about not being able to get in the pool. But I do think that this is the start probably of other things, because I don't know if they've had that conversation necessarily on what the limitations are for one of the, I don't know if it's a disease, I don't think it's a disease, but one of the it is autoimmune disease or disorder. She has an autoimmune issue, and I can't pronounce it. That's the only reason why I'm not saying it, but it's like ankylo something that causes daily pain in her body. I think specifically in her joints. I feel like the level of pain probably varies from day to day. So at this point, I don't know if they've had discussion about what other limitations she may possibly have when it comes to the honeymoon, when it comes to physical, labor, when it comes to sex. Like, possibly all of that could be impacted. And I assume they have not had the conversation just yet. But it'd be interesting to know if there are any other limitations that she experiences just in her everyday life that he needs to be aware of. Is there certain things that she needs to have in the home that they share with each other to make life a little better for her? Again, those are things they need to talk about. So we'll see. And it seems like for them, with Cameron and Claire, they've had big discussions off camera. With Austin and Becca, they haven't had any really serious discussions, but they seem to get along really, really well. It doesn't seem like necessarily talk about surface level stuff, but it seems every conversation they've had so far has led to them learning more and more about what they have in common, which is not a bad thing. But they haven't talked a lot about the future. They had that one conversation about kids, but not about what to expect when they're living together, what to expect, like expectations of, what is your stance on men and women when it comes to the roles of the household, when it comes to taking care of bills. None of that has taken place just yet. But I'm sure it'll come in the future. I do like the fact that they're just kind of enjoying themselves on the honeymoon, because this is the time to really just relax, because the real world hasn't intervened just yet. So this is the time to really just enjoy yourself. They went kayaking, and and she said she's feeling butterflies with him. And that was pretty much it for them for episode 5. So we go to Emily and Brennan. They took a shower together, and I love that. I thought it was a great way to build intimacy as strangers. In a few seasons ago, Woody and Imani, if you guys have been watching the show, you know who Woody and Imani are. They're this beautiful Black couple from Married at First Sight that just celebrated the birth of their second little boy. But they, on their honeymoon, before they actually had sex, they took a shower together. And it was a way for them to build intimacy, to be comfortable with their own bodies, to start learning about what your partner likes and doesn't like. So Emily and Brennan took a shower together. They did not have sex. But when she was getting out of the shower, she slipped and fell and hurt her hand. So in this episode and the episode after that, her hand is still very much swollen, but she's still smiling and doing all the activities and just, being a trooper. I was like, okay, all right. She said they talked about how she does not have a very good work-life balance, and she wants a routine and she wants to do better with that. I was like, okay. I will say this episode had me looking at Emily a little differently, in a good way. I just started seeing sides of her that I hadn't really seen before, and I was like, okay, Emily is looking for stability. She's looking for routine. She's looking to start making a life with someone. And it seems like she is going to be leaning on Brennan a little bit to help her figure out how to have that balance. And I guess I understand that actually for because her friend said that she works really hard, she works really long hours, she loves, just making money, but also just loves her job, and she's good at what she does. I don't even remember what she does, but apparently she's good at it, which is a good thing. I think that work-life balance is something we all, almost speak for everybody, and I'm gonna speak for all of you, because I don't know if there's even such a thing as balance. I think that we all just try our best from day to day. Some days are better than others when it comes to making sure we are getting our work done, but then also spending time with our families, with our girlfriends, with our spouses, or whatever. I think, again, every day you're just trying your best. You're putting that effort in. And there are going to be some days where work is going to take precedence, and some days where your family will take precedence. And that's just kind of the way the world works. And I think for Emily, she probably hasn't had to worry about work-life balance because she hasn't had somebody there that she needed to balance with. Like, she has her friends, and it seems like she sees her friends and has a relationship with them, a relationship with her family, but she hasn't had a real relationship before. So she's never been in a position where she's had to find that balance between her love life and her job. Now that she has a husband, I hope that desire to want to get to know him better and to make sure he feels seen and heard will force her to maybe cut back a little bit in some ways. But I think also because he works really hard, he'll understand that she works hard and understand that she has to put in all these hours. But it's still a matter of understanding that this person has to do this, but also understanding that I'm still here and I still need your attention as well. So it's going to be a lot of patience, a lot of trial and error, but it seems that she wants this. It seems she really wants to let go a little bit so that she can be the best wife that she could possibly be. So we shall see. She also said that she's bad at budgeting, and she wants her money to go further. He believes in living below his means, and she doesn't know where her money is going. And they say that's a really touchy subject when it's not your shared money. Because them having that conversation, now granted, she said she wants to know where her money is going. She didn't outright ask him, can you help me learn how to budget my money? She didn't ask him that. And also when it comes to the show, a lot of the conversations that are had about money typically happen off camera. The beginning seasons of the show did not do that. They had the conversations like right up front, right when they were moving in together. So it's a little different now. And I think that we've had couples in the past where they deal with money very differently, and the one who lives paycheck to paycheck feels stifled by the one who is more of a penny pincher. And I don't know if that'll be the issue with Emily and Brennan. Again, I think if their money is shared, then that makes it a little more apparent that, hey, we need to make sure we do this. Let's put aside this money for the job, this money for a car, this money for whatever. But if the money isn't shared, and you haven't outright asked for help, hopefully they'll kind of keep that stuff separate and they'll understand, okay, your money's your money, my money's my money. As long as we're both saving for our future in some way, shape, or form, that's all that matters. I'm hoping that's what happens, but you really never know on the show. I feel like on the honeymoon is where we get little hidden pockets of what could possibly be a conflict. Because there's a little bit of conflict on the honeymoon, not a ton. Normally, it's like a little line here or there that they kind of just stow away in their memory. And then weeks later, they're living together. And that one little thing that somebody said on the honeymoon will pop up like, he did say this, this, and this. And now that we're living together, I see it. So I feel like that's one of those things that we kind of have to keep our eye out for is money to see if that'll be an issue later on. They took mezcal shots and... oh, gosh. She did make one comment that I agree with. She said, I'm a married woman, but I'm still fun. Mind you, whenever any of these people say, oh, marriage is great so far, or nothing, I don't know why people say it's hard. It's been 4 days. That's why you can easily say marriage is fun and it's great. And it's no problem whatsoever. We're having the best time. It's been 4 days. Of course it's great. It's supposed to be great after 4 days. If it's not great after 4 days, that's a problem, right? But her saying I'm a married woman, but I'm still fun. I like that line because I think a lot of people assume that once you get married and or once you have children, that the fun stops. The fun may change and shift a little bit, but you are still fun and you can still have fun. And I'm a testament to that. I've been married for 10 years. I've been a mommy for 14 years. And I still hang out with my friends. I still, go dancing. I go on vacation. I go out to dinners. I still have fun. It's not like it used to be. I can't go to the club every single weekend like I used to do in my 20s. I also don't want to do that, though. I'm tired. That's a lot. And I also don't wait nobody in line no more. And I'm not paying no coverage fee no more. Like some stuff I've grown out of in my age. Regardless, the fun shifts a little bit when you have these big life changes. That does not mean that it stops. Keep that in mind with your married friends, or even with yourself. You can still be fun and have fun. It seems like they're similar, but they appreciate that they're still individual people. They both said that they're building to sex, that the physical is definitely going to come. They kiss, they hold hands. They're definitely not uncomfortable being in each other's spaces like that. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't had sex yet. And it definitely seems like Brennan is the one kind of holding back and Emily's just following his lead, which I was shocked about as well. I definitely thought that Emily would have been the one to be like, oh, I'm ready. Let's do blah, 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 blah. But she's like, no. She's like, I like what we're building. And they also made a comment that I guess in past relationships or past experiences, because she's never been in a relationship, that they've rushed into having sex too soon. So they're both are taking a different approach and really trying to get to know each other better before they introduce that aspect to their relationship. And it's like, okay, that is not bad to try something different, and it shows that they're seeing this as a different thing. They're seeing this as an actual marriage, not just a hookup, not just a blind date or whatever. They're treating this like something that they want to be sustained for a long time. So it's like, okay, we'll see what happens, but I like where they are right now. It seems like they're in a really good place. And last is Lauren and Orion. I think I said this last week. One of the things I know I said last week on the last video was, I don't want every week for this to turn into a lesson on her, a lesson from her on what it means to be Black. And I feel like it's going to be a lesson on what it means to be a minority, for I guess both of their standpoints. I don't want that every single week. And I'm saying this as a Black woman, but I feel like, yes, they have a lot to learn from each other because of their different cultures. I don't think all of that needs to be on camera. I feel like outside of the cultural aspect, there's still so many other things that they have to get through, that they have to learn about each other, that they have to adjust to, that the cultural piece should be conversations they have off camera. Everything on camera, let's just focus on the two of you as a husband and as a wife. And I think because all of that stuff is on camera right now with the conversation that they had about, and also this is kind of Lauren's fault. She asked them point blank, have you ever said the N-word? A, why would you ask that? B, why would you ask that on camera? Like, again, that's an off-camera kind of conversation. And I wouldn't even ask that. I'm like, I don't need to know if you said it. Not as long as you know not to say it in front of me or not to call me that, then we're good. But I don't need to know what you did in the past. Like, that's neither here nor there. I don't need to know that. So yeah, that part is her fault. But because they put so much of those kind of conversations on camera, I don't want the audience, however many millions of people are watching this show on a weekly basis, I don't want them focusing on this Black woman and this American Indian man. I want them to focus on this wife and this husband who have gotten married at first sight, and let's see how they do as a newly married couple who have never done this before. I want that to be the focus. And I feel like that is being taken away. Every week now, we're getting some kind of history lesson from either her and or him. And it's like, this is just a lot for me. And it's taking away from me liking them as a couple and me really getting to know them as a couple, because I'm even just seeing them as, oh, what cultural thing am I going to learn today? And it's like, that's not what the show was for. So that's my personal opinion. She wants to wait until intimacy is so high that they want to rip their clothes off. But she admitted that she's attracted to him, and he said the same to her. And one thing I was curious about, this is the same man that during the bachelor party, he talked to the other husbands about how he has a girth problem and how he's basically so big that it's ruined relationships in the past because women couldn't handle how girthy he was. Now, for all the conversations that Lauren and Orion have had, I'm very curious to know if he has talked to her about this. If he has, it hasn't been on camera, and she hasn't mentioned anything about it, so I'm going to assume that this conversation is not taking place yet. I'm surprised he hasn't mentioned it. I think that needs to come up sooner rather than later, personally. They're very comfortable with physical touch. They're very huggy. They sit very close to each other. His biggest priority is making sure that she feels safe, and she said that means a lot to her. And I put in my notes that men should feel safe too. So hopefully, and she said that before, that she wants him to feel safe. She wants him to feel heard and understood. And mainly because she said this probably in a couple episodes, she'll probably keep saying it. When it comes to being a minority or just being an other, the outside world is not going to, blanketly, the outside world is not going to show you the respect that you deserve. The outside world is not going to hear you or see you or value you. So she wants to make sure that her man, no matter who he is, can come home to an environment where he feels safe, where he feels heard and understood, and he understands that he is valued here. Because he may not get that when he walks outside this door, but he knows when he comes home, he's going to get absolutely everything that he needs. And I like the fact that they're both on the same page when it comes to that. That really brought my heart some joy. Because that's a big thing. And not everybody looks at that as a priority. And so I'm glad that they talked about that. He only wants, I think both of them only want one kid. They're open to the idea of adoption. And I like the fact that they're having these conversations based off of the future that they see for themselves. Like, they are having the really deep conversations on their honeymoon. And I think that it probably depends on the couple on whether or not you should have those kind of conversations, right? And it's like, oh, this is nice for you guys. For you guys, I see this makes sense. They don't seem like Austin and Becca, they're not going to have silly conversations. All their conversations have been very meaningful and very deep, but I feel like that personality-wise, that's just who they both are. Not saying they can't be silly and have fun, but honestly, I haven't seen them do anything fun together, really. So it'd be nice to kind of see in the future, even in like the next coming episodes while they're still on the honeymoon, if we see them doing anything fun, just the two of them. We haven't really seen that just yet. He said that Lauren is warm and he thinks he'll be good parents. And she was like, yeah, it's like these conversations give me reassurance that we're talking about the future and all this other stuff, right? And I said, I love the simplicity of them just talking in the water, where everybody's doing these adventures. They're just in the water, having a good conversation in a pool. It was really nice. Oh, Lord, this is the episode where he asked to watch her lay her edges. I was like, I'm tired of this. I don't really want to see this. And they both got in a hammock and talks about how marriage feels so natural. Again, it's been 4 days. It's supposed to feel beautiful and natural and wonderful and perfect, and like the world is spinning in a certain, like all that stuff. It's supposed to feel great. It's been 4 days. And I mean, yeah, they were in a hammock. I was like, you are never going to find me in a hammock. I would think too much about falling and I would not be able to relax. So hammock is not for your girl. I don't really think it's for plus size people. It's just not. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me. They talked about money, about the traditional or non-traditional gender roles in the household. He wants to be the provider and split things 80-20. I was like, oh, they're getting like deep into this. And that's very specific. And she doesn't want him to feel like he's shouldering things on his own. And I said, that's all well and good that you guys have agreed to this. I don't think that should happen right away. I feel like wait until decision day. And once decision day happens, if you feel like, okay, yes, I'm going to stay married to you. Yes, you're going to stay married to me. Now we're going to find our own apartment or our house or whatever. Now we can put that into practice. Before this 8 weeks, I don't think whatever conversation you have about money and whatever understanding you come to when it comes to money, I don't think you should put that into practice immediately. I say give that some time. Personally, hopefully things work out after 8 weeks, but if it doesn't, I don't want you getting used to this person, you know, paying for 80% of things for 2 months, and now all of a sudden you got to go back to paying everything yourself. Obviously you can do that, but I just think that you should kind of hold off just a little bit. Some people, and I know people jump into this with the assumption that it's going to be forever, and that is a great way to do it. But there are some things that you should hold off on. There's some things you kind of keep a little close to yourself. There was one seasons ago where as a black couple, during that 8 weeks, the woman went and changed her last name. That's all well and good. The marriage did not work out. It was her fault, honestly. I'm going to keep it a buck. I remember their names. I'm not going to say their names. I don't remember the season. But again, some things just kind of hold close to each other. You can have that conversation of, oh, do you want to take my name? Do you want to hyphenate? Do you want to keep your name? Have that conversation. Come to that decision of whatever you want to do. And then after 8 weeks, if we decide we're going to keep doing this thing, then okay, now I can put these things into practice. You don't need to just rush through it. Take your time. Just, that's just my personal opinion. They talked about manscaping. I was like, okay, that's a lot. Oh God. So yeah, he asked her, is there anything you want to know before the honeymoon ends? Which again, I think is a weird question because we're on like day 2 of the honeymoon. We still have probably 5 more days. You couldn't ask that question the last day. And then she asked him if he's ever said the N word. Now, I'm going to stop here when it comes to them. It turned into this very long, complicated conversation about slurs. So he admitted he said the word when he was younger, but I know better now. She's like, okay, well, that, I understand when you're young and you're dumb, that happens. And then they started talking about a slur for American Indians. And I don't know if I should say the word. I don't want to disrespect anybody. I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. I will say that I'm from the DMV, and this is the former name of the National Football League team in Washington, D.C. If you know that name, then you know what name I'm talking about. So they had a long conversation about what that word means, and I also didn't know the history of the word. I knew that it was a slur, but I never researched why it was a slur. So he explains why that word is so hurtful and where it came from. But in that conversation, he had an issue with her reaction to his explanation or her reaction to the word itself, even though it's not a word that she ever uses. He was educating her on it, which was fine, but then his reaction to it, he was just really hot under the collar at her. She seemed to like take it in stride, and she was just listening to him like, okay, tell me, it seems like, are you upset right now? Okay, it seems like you're upset. Okay, I can see that. She's talking to him very calmly. So I thought the way she handled it was great. But one thing he couldn't tell, one thing I could tell, is that the more he kept talking, I could see her shutting down. Not because she felt bad necessarily, but she could tell that everything that's coming out of his mouth is not directed towards me, Lauren specifically. It's directed towards the history of this word and probably past incidences where someone has called him that. All of that was coming out in his speech. And she knew in that moment, this is nothing to do with me. Now this is about something that happened in your past. So I'm going to let you stew in that moment. I don't want to take that pain away from you. I'm going to let you just have your moment, and I'm going to back off emotionally, which I could tell. And and she just at some point just said, okay. And he kept talking, and I put in my notes, like, does he not know what it means when a black woman says okay? Okay can mean a lot of different things for a black woman. But in that moment, I could see that she was saying, okay, like, okay, I'm not going to say anything else about this, because anything I say, you're going to take the wrong way, or you're going to just immediately, rebuff it or not even hear me. So I'm not saying anything else. It seems like we need to go to our separate corners and we need to call it a day. So that was episode 5. Now we're going to episode 6. And since we just ended with Lauren and Orion, we are going to start with them for episode 6. Episode 6 was called Cancun Can't Touch This. So episode 6, Lauren and Orion, they slept separately that night after they had their argument to kind of give each other some space. She said she got in bed around 5 a.m. and he said they feel a little offbeat, but he wants to open a new narrative with her. He wants to make sure that they're good. They went into a cave to do some swimming. And again, I haven't seen them do anything really fun. Everything they've done has been very chilled and relaxing. They're kind of acting like the old couple, but I'm like, she's 31, he's 27. It's not like they're old. But I thought it was interesting that they're the only ones who haven't had any kind of like real adventure. It's just been like, let's go to this pool. Okay, let's go to this cave that has a pool. Like, it's been very just zen. And maybe that's what they want on vacation. Who knows? Either way, they went into the cave and she talked to him. She said she feels bad for offending him and putting him in a position to give a history lesson. She said no minority should be put in that position where they feel like they have to educate the ignorant. And I was like, oh, that's a very different... I didn't expect her to say that. And I was like, huh. It's a good perspective, but I just wasn't expecting her to say that. And I think, again, the way she handled it and the way she so thoughtfully talked to him about it, I love the way Lauren's brain works. And I love how she's able to really communicate to him exactly what she's feeling, what she's seeing, what she's experiencing. And I really like that. They definitely, when they have those deep conversations with each other like that, I do feel like they're both hearing each other and they both have the best of intentions when it comes to each other. And Orion admitted, he said he wasn't upset, but he also knew in that moment, again, because he, I know, had all that stuff from his past at the forefront of his mind, he didn't know how to form words that would be respectful when talking to her, because he was hot under the collar, not at her, but about the subject matter. which again is fine. So they both agreed that walking away was the best option for them to kind of get their minds right and then come back and have a full-on discussion about it. She said she wants them to be seen and heard and valued at home. And, I said that already. And she also said it's kind of hard to stay mad in paradise, which I agree as well. I said they handled it in a good way and they're very good at communicating with each other, which they are. I really, really appreciated that. She and the girls got together, hung out, and he and the guys got together, hung out. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'll talk about that after I finish with them. And afterwards, she brought him ice cream, his favorite flavor. And he had only told her once what his favorite flavor was. So that was really nice. She heard him and remembered and honored her man by bringing him some nice little sweet treat. I thought that was cute. She talked about how when she makes a mistake, she feels like she basks in shame and guilt. But she appreciated that he gave her the grace she needed. And I was like, wow, that's a hard thing to admit to somebody. And again, she's very vulnerable with him. I feel like he is too, but I'm really liking Lauren a lot. This episode made me really like her, just the way her mind works and the way she communicates what she needs and what she's seeing. I really appreciated her, and it's like a lot. I appreciated her. They both said they've never had consistent reciprocation from a partner, but they hope to build that with each other. They went to dinner. This is when I turned on Orion. I was like, nope, not feeling him at all. They went out to dinner, nice little romantic dinner, and she was talking about how, when they went on a boat with all the other couples, she's like, when we were on the boat, I love just touching you. Like, she had her head in his lap, she's hugging him, he's kissing her, cheek or whatever. He has his hand on her thigh, she has her hand on his back. They were just touching each other the whole time. She talked about how much she loved touching him on the boat and how it made these feelings of intimacy really rise up in her, and she's getting closer and closer to wanting to have sex, right? So they had this long conversation about sex and about what they want, and I was like, oh, they're getting into this conversation. Again, I thought something that would happen off camera, but then again, the sex conversations almost always happen on camera, so actually I kind of get it. But she talked about, she said the word fellatio. I was like, we say fellatio in Lifetime? I was like, I guess so. It's Lifetime, it's 2023. Lifetime is like fellatio. Talked about fellatio. They talked in detail about foreplay, about sex toys, and she said she's open to exploring his body from head to toe. And I was just like, and again, in this conversation where you're talking in detail about sex and about what you want to do with your spouse, what you like done to you, this would have been the perfect time for Orion to talk about the girth thing. It's like, when are you going to tell this chick that apparently you're packing and this is in the relationship and past because you're too freaking big? This was the time. You guys are talking explicitly about sex. As soon as she said, I want to explore your whole body, he could have been right then and there. Okay, something I need to confess to you. This is hard for me to admit, but I've had previous relationships where as soon as it was time to get intimate, the relationship ended. And hear me out, Lauren, hear me out. It's not that I turn women off. It's that I'm too much for them. And of course she'd be like, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? So I have this issue where I'm just a little too girthy for women, and I've caused some women have gone to the hospital, and it's just been this whole thing and whatever. Granted, none that I'm in my head, I imagine the conversation will go like this. It's probably not gonna go like that. But this was the perfect time for him to mention it. Instead, he talked about how it's been a while since he's had sex. And she's like, oh, how long is a while? He's like, it's been about 18 months or a year and a half. She's like, wow, okay. She's like, well, it hasn't been quite that long for me. She's like, it's been 2 months for me. This is when things go south. So let me say this. Well, no, let me finish what he said first, and then I'm going to tell you my take on it. She said she had sex in 2 months. He said, honestly, that makes me uncomfortable. And she was like, oh. He was like, yeah. He's like, because, he's like, I think we probably look at things differently, but I know for me, when I have sex, I don't just give it away. Like, sex kind of means something to me. And she was like, yeah, it means something to me too. And she's like, so how do you feel about the fact that it's only been 2 months since I've had sex? He's like, honestly, it kind of takes sex off the table for me. And so here's my thing. Oh, he also said, when the experts found me someone, I consider myself engaged. She's like, yeah, me too. She's like, 2 months ago, they hadn't found a person for me. I wasn't engaged yet. So this is my thing. A couple things. Lauren is not the kind of person who's going to lie when it comes to stuff like that. She's always going to be honest and truthful. I get that impression from her. She's not going to lie. Because my uncles who are watching the show are texting like, oh, she should have lied. She's not going to lie. That's just not her. And she doesn't want to start her marriage off that way, and I give her kudos for that. That's number one. Number two, she did better than me. Because as soon as he said, well, I don't like to give it away, my immediate reaction would be like, so you're implying that I do? So you basically called me a slut. So basically you're slut shaming. That's exactly what he did. He was saying that she gives it away, like she doesn't value her body or doesn't value sex, and then was shaming her for having sex 2 months ago. He was so judgmental in that moment. And I'm like, why? And you haven't had sex in 18 months. That doesn't necessarily mean that you were holding yourself, like keeping yourself pure for 18 months because you knew you were going to get married. Because again, this process, I know the process for the show ranges in terms of how long it lasts, right? I know that it's not 18 months. So 18 months ago, you didn't know probably that you were going to apply for the show. 18 months ago, you hadn't applied to the show. 18 months ago, you hadn't gone through no kind of process. So don't tell me that was why it's been 18 months. And he didn't say that, but it was almost like insinuating like, well, I was waiting for my wife for 18 months. No, you freaking weren't. You got an issue. You got a girth problem. And not to be mean, Orion ain't that daggone cute. At least not to me. He's not my type. He's not my flavor of ice cream, not my kind of coffee. I don't really care for Orion physically, right? I'm assuming there are some other women who are like me who don't find him attractive. So the 18 months dry spell, that could have been you deciding I'm not going to do it. But I think it's more likely that you just couldn't get none. I'm just going to put that out there. Either way, I didn't like his reaction to her at all. It's like, really? Like, that was so judgmental. And that was unnecessary. Like, you're going to judge my girl because she enjoys sex? She likes the company of a person? Why not? She wasn't engaged at that time. And again, the way this process lasts, just because you fill out the application and you go in for an interview, that doesn't mean you're chosen. They get more than 1,000 applications, I'm sure, per season. And then after those applications are looked at, they don't bring everybody in for an interview. That's still like 200 people that bring in for an interview. So until I have this interview and now do the home visit, anything is up for grabs. Even people got a home visit, all of them didn't even get selected. So once they told her, hey, we found somebody for you, getting married in 2 weeks, of course she was like, bet, I'm engaged. This is great. I'm ready. Let's get married. But that doesn't mean she had to be a month beforehand. Like, she's a woman. She still got needs. So I had an issue with his reaction. That pissed me off. And that was how the episode ended. And I love her reaction. She was like, okay. Then the food came. She was like, okay, well, what else can we talk about? No sex, right? Okay, no sex. All right. What else? And I know in her mind, she was like, you ain't about to shame me. I'm not ashamed. I love sex. I love my body. I got needs. I'm going to do what I need to do. And that's it. Regardless, I was not feeling him in that moment. Like, not even a little bit. We're going to go to the girls and the guys getting together. The girls chilled at the pool. The guys went to the beach and just hung out. So when the guys were together, Cam said that he thinks Claire's more playful than he realized. He said they're both serious and silly, but they get stuck in the same mode at the same time, which isn't great. He said that she communicates how she feels, but not what she wants. I was like, oh, that's a great observation. And again, I don't know if he said that to her, but I thought it was a really good observation. That she says how she feels, but not exactly what she wants. That's really good. He also said that he's attracted to her and wants the intimacy to grow. And Claire basically she specifically asked Becca for advice on being physically affectionate, because out of all the couples, Becca and Austin seem to kind of kiss the most and are kind of all over each other the most. So Claire sought her out for her advice on that. And she also admitted that in the past, she hasn't really had that when it comes to men. Men haven't been forthright in showing her affection in public. So therefore, she's gotten used to that. So, and she mentioned to the girls, and they were like, yeah, but you don't reciprocate when Cam does do something physical with you. She's like, what are you talking about? He hasn't. They were like, no, we saw him when we were all hanging out. He put his arm around you, and you didn't even acknowledge that he has arm around you. She's like, next time he does that, just put your hand on his leg. Just something simple so that he knows that you recognize that he's touching you in some way. Just touch him back. And it's like, oh, like, you're right, he did do that, and I didn't acknowledge it. It went over her head because, again, she's not used to it, so she wasn't expecting it. So I thought it was a good conversation for her, and it seemed like she actually was really taking in their information and really trying to do better. Let's see, what else? She said they haven't kissed or cuddled on the honeymoon, and Lauren talked about like how she and Orion are doing. She was like, obviously we're an interracial couple, so things are going to be a little, dicey every once in a while, but we're learning from each other, we're patient with each other, and we're doing good. We're in a good place. I love the fact that she did not go into details about her conversation with him, because again, I did not want this to turn into, this is before the conversation about sex, this is a conversation about the racial slur. But I was like, I don't want to rehash that all over again. So I'm glad she didn't go into details. That made me happy. Emily said that being married feels normal to her. It's not a big deal. She thought it would be. 4 days. No wonder it doesn't make a big deal, girl. I hate when they say that. Like, stop saying that. It's been 4 or 5, it ain't even been a week. Like, just chill with that. And Becca says she's learning to stay present and not immediately jump into the serious conversations with her partner. Austin, when he was with the boys, said that, oh yeah, things are good. Things are cool. And I did have a question, why was he so vague and evasive about his marriage? But I got the answer later when he was with Becca. And what else did they do together? The couples went on a boat together, and they ran into heavy rains on the way, so it was canceled. And then they ended up going to dinner. Excuse me. They ended up going to dinner, and Becca brought cards that were meant to build intimacy among the couples. And some of the questions in there was like, what is your pet peeve? How are you fulfilled? Who in your life can you be the most vulnerable with? What's the hardest part about yourself to accept? Really good questions. And I was like, oh, I need to get this for myself. And actually made me want to answer some of these questions for myself as well. Emily talked about the most curious thing. What's the most curious thing? What is she the most curious about? She says the most curious about what it feels like to be in love. I was like, oh, woo-woo. And Cameron talked about how difficult school was for him and his parents' divorce, and how he was in a really different place then. And he was like, it's confusing to me, or it's hard for me to reconcile with the person that I was, because those memories I have aren't who I am anymore. And it was a really vulnerable thing that he said. It was very vulnerable. And I thought it was a very in tuned answer. He's very in tune with who he is and who he used to be. And sometimes there's a battle there between the two people. And it was just a very heartfelt response. And even Claire was like really impressed. She's like, I can tell it was something that was hard for him to talk about, but she's like holding his leg under the table. And it's like, that was the first time we've really seen her touch him first without him already touching her. So I was like, oh, that was really sweet. That was probably my favorite part of the episode, was him just kind of talking things out. I thought that was very sweet. Then they end up getting back on the boat the next day. And I did say that Lauren reminds me of myself, because she likes to ask the big introspective questions with her spouse and with other people. And I definitely do that too. And I think it's because I used to be a reporter, so I'm good at asking questions. And it's just something that comes naturally to me. So she definitely reminds me of me when it comes to that. Austin said he feels safe with Becca and that she has his back. Lauren and Becca had to remind themselves, basically we're talking about how we have gone through whatever we've gone through in our past. We're both very happy in this moment, and we have to remind ourselves that we deserve this. And I was like, I like that too. I think sometimes when we have something really good in our lives, whether it's a good job, a good relationship, good girlfriends, whatever that good thing is in your life, sometimes you can be in a mindset where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, oh, things are too good, something has to take this away. Or things are too good, something is going to ruin this, I just know it is. Or you even yourself will sabotage it because things are just too good and you don't know how to handle it. And I think sometimes we do have to have that conversation with ourselves that, hey, you deserve this. And it's okay to be happy. It's okay to acknowledge that you are in a really good place. That's not a bad place to be. And yes, anything can happen. Yes, this can go away at any time. Yes, this can be ruined or whatever. All of that is possible, but we have no way of knowing what's going to happen in the future. So because we can't control that, because we don't know if or when those things are going to happen, in this very moment, on November 25th, 2023 at 3:47 p.m., I am going to choose to be happy with where things are and dwell in that happiness and just fall in love with that happiness. And that's not a bad thing. So I like the fact they both were kind of assuring each other, like, girl, we deserve this. Like, you know what, girl, you're absolutely right. We do deserve this. Let's love on this right now. So that made me happy. And let's see, Brennan said he's getting a best friend with Emily and he wouldn't want to do this with anyone else. Cameron said he was hesitant around Claire before, but he feels the tide has shifted and he can be more himself. And he told her, you know what, it helps that you're easy on the eyes. I hate when a guy says that. You can't just say she's pretty, that she's sexy. Easy on the eyes, that's just not romantic, but that's just my opinion. But that was like all the stuff that they did together. So Emily and Brennan by themselves, they went flyboarding. And I didn't know if that was a specific name for it. Basically, it's when you have special shoes. You're in the water. A boat is pulling you, I guess. You have these special shoes on that have like turbo jets underneath them that have like water. So you're basically like flying in the air and it's just you're wearing water shoes. And it looks fun. I don't got a lot of good balance. So I don't know if I could do it. But it looked fun. So they did that. He said that she's motivated, she's passionate, she's awesome. And that's pretty much it. There was a whole thing about her hair because she had extensions and they were really tangled. And I was like, I don't care about this part. They could have taken all this out of the episode and I would have been perfectly fine. And let's see, Austin and Becca, they shared a hammock. And he talked about when he was talking with the guys and he didn't go into detail about the relationship. He said he downplayed it on purpose because he didn't want them to feel bad. He was like, and I don't want to discourage them from thinking that their relationship isn't good. I was like, oh, that's a nice way to look at it. Nothing really happened with them. They didn't really do anything, just the two of them. For Lauren and Orion, talked about them already. I don't know what's happening with them. Cameron and Claire went to a splatter room with like black lights everywhere. I thought that looked really fun. They basically just like threw paint at each other and the canvas. It looked really fun. And it was their first time doing something really intimate together because the paddleboarding, again, they're on two different paddle boards and paddling kind of beside each other, but they're focused so much on keeping their balance, not falling in the water. There's probably not a lot of communication happening. So I thought the splatter room was really good. Nice, good activity for them to do together. To really be like with each other, get to show that playful side to each other that they haven't really seen before. So I thought that was cool. And they talked again about attraction. I said they really need to talk about their feelings more because they both aren't that great at it, even though Claire thinks she is. They're really not that good at it. He said he likes her and he hopes that she's attracted to him. He admitted that he's not as good a communicator as she is. And she said she has to remember that they don't communicate the same and that that's okay. And she apologized to him for not acknowledging when he's trying to be more physical. So again, I love the fact that she really took what the girl said to heart and she started putting it into practice by A, apologizing to him for not acknowledging when he was trying to do something physical, and B, for her even touching him like under the table, touching his leg. And even the times he put his hand around her again, now she's touching his leg and like leaning into him more, where before she just kind of ignored it. So it seems like she's making an effort. And it seems like he's making an effort as well. And he said they just both need to relax and have fun. And he feels optimistic about their future. I was like, okay, good for them. So that's all that happened in episode 5 and 6 of Married at First Sight season 17. I will say that now that I've seen all 4 couples, I'm ready to give my predictions on who is going to stay together and who is not. Okay. We're going to start with Cameron and Claire. I think that Cameron would definitely say yes. I think that, take that back. They're a maybe for me. I'm going to say yes. I think they both want this, but I think with Cameron, it'll be a lot easier for him to say no and just kind of walk away than it would be for her. I only say that because of his background. His family isn't even there. He's made a life for himself in Denver over the past 10 years. But he seems like the kind of person who can just kind of up and leave whenever he wants, just because. So it would be easy for him to leave. That doesn't necessarily mean that he would want to. I think he and Claire are in a good place right now. I'm hoping things will continue to grow, obviously, when they get back home. So I'm going to say yes. Either they'll both say yes, or Claire will say yes and Cameron will say no. But with all these couples, it always depends on who answers the question first. So that's Cameron and Claire. I'm going to say they're going to say yes on decision day. Becca and Austin are going to say yes on decision day. Right now, there's absolutely nothing that is showing me that may not work for either of them. They are going to say yes on decision day. They are going to stay married. That's just it for me. Emily and Brennan. I'm going to say, I'm going to say that Emily is going to say no, only because she has wanted this for a long time and things are going really great. So she's like, oh my gosh, things are wonderful. Being married is great. But again, she hasn't really had to experience marriage yet in the real world. And it can be difficult, even with it just being a few weeks. Real life stuff hits you very quickly. And, you got to deal with moving in with this person, living with a person for the first time, having the family come over for the housewarming. You're going to have to, just learn to live with this person. And again, there's an issue of money. I don't know if that's going to play in their marriage or not. I'm going to assume, though, that at some point things are going to get so bad or just so heavy that Emily's not going to want to deal with it. And she's going to this is a lot harder than I thought, and I just can't do this. I'm going to say Emily's going to say no. I'm going to say Brennan is going to say no as well. Only because I feel like right now it hasn't really been a factor that she hasn't been in a relationship, because essentially, even though they're married, you're basically just on vacation with the new boo. That's all you guys are doing. You haven't had to experience really being married just yet. I think at some point, her lack of experience is going to get on his nerves. He's going to be like, I'm tired of having to teach her how to put me first. And she's going to be tired of learning all these things about being a wife and how hard it is to be married. So I'm going to say they're both going to say no. Lauren and Orion, I think Orion is going to say yes. I think Lauren is going to say no. I think they both want to be married. I think intellectually they make a lot of sense. But at least right now, Orion has a lot of work that he needs to do on himself. I think he's very judgmental. And I think that Lauren is too smart to hang around just because she wants to be married. She wants to be married, but she's also very sure of who she is, sure of what she wants and what she doesn't want, that she's not going to stick around in a situation that she knows will be toxic for her. So I'm going to say she's going to say no, and he's going to say yes. So those are my predictions. I think Cameron and Claire and Austin and Beck are going to make it. I think Emily and Brennan and Lauren and Orion do not make it. But we'll see. We have a lot of Married at First Sight to get through. This is only week 6. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a lot longer because it was 2 episodes in one. But thank you for being patient with me. Make sure you like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, comment below. And I will see you guys next week. Peace.